but now working with different companies at different stages in different industries or markets, seeing more patterns quicker. And I see that most of companies, they're facing the same challenges.
You can, like, if you want to get promoted, you ultimately need to start doing things that will stand out. It sounds like that's what you're doing. You are helping out other team members. 100% agree. And if you're the best rep, sometimes management will be like, well, I don't want to lose my best rep, who's producing the most business or booking the most meetings.
So the AI will be even better than the manager, for example, to train the rep on this.
No one wants to be an SDR forever. So if you have done a lot of hard things in the past, and it makes this role a little bit easier. That's another one that comes to mind.
And even though in a hiring process, they know we test them on that, you have some people pushing back on your feedback. And I know if someone is pushing back on the feedback, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but it's if someone is already pushing back on this, for me, that's already a red flag, for example, for coachability.
Now, I've found that people can interview very well. So they talk well, they've had some good experience, they're professional interviewers, but then they get, they get hired and all of a sudden you're like, what? It's one of those roles where you can come from a lot of different backgrounds and excel. You could be a teacher, you can be an athlete, you can be a programmer. That's probably not as likely, but you can literally come from all walks of life and be good in sales, which is very interesting, but also makes it hard to hire. But we have a few companies that will go to conferences and others that will hold small events, like invite-only events, and one of them just sold a $20 million deal, so it does work.
Yeah. Some people say, oh yeah, I want to just do cold email, but for a 20 million ACV deal, I don't think just sending one email is going to be enough. But you can see that OpenAI, Anthropic are hiring SDRs. So they are not hiring an SDR to manage AI agents. They are hiring people to go after the biggest accounts in the world. In the past 12 months, globally, the number of SDRs grew by 30,000 SDRs.
Really? Welcome back to Prospecting Pros. And on today's show, we have Elric joining us from Mexico City. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us. Welcome.
John, thank you so much for the invite. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So the way I like to start off every show is give us a little bit of background on your career. How did you get into the SDR world, into outbound? Walk us through some of the positions you had and where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So today I run my own business solo on the outbound side. So I focus on building stack systems for sales team, SDR and AEs. But before that, I was working full-time for companies, 7 years. And I was an SDR and then moved to leadership, then moved to an SDR role again, and then moved to leadership again. So I've been in the trenches and building teams. And now I would say thinking about being an external resource for those teams. And yeah, happy to make this transition because I thought working full-time for companies was going to help me learn, I would say, more about outbound, but now working with different companies at different stages in different industries or markets, seeing more patterns quicker. And I see that most of companies, they're facing the same challenges. And even though that you think you have a different industry, most of the time they have the same challenges, I would say. So that's, I would say, in a nutshell, my background.
It's interesting how a lot of people start as an SDR and work their way up. What were you doing before that? Were you in another field, or was that the first position as you joined the workforce?
So I studied marketing, and my first role was a marketing role for a Mexican company selling B2B services for large companies in Mexico City. And the founder of this company hired me to help them get leads for the sales team. And I just got my master degree I was studying in France, so I moved to Mexico at that time. And all the stuff I learned during my business school, they showed us, hey, how to do marketing with 1 million euros in budget, for example. And at this company, it's an SMB company, and they had like no budget. And so I was trying to basically say, hey, we should try Google Ads. Hey, we should try LinkedIn ads. yeah, but we have no budget. So I started to basically research online, free stuff, free marketing campaigns we could run. And at some point, I found like the book Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross, one of the first sales leader at Salesforce. And I said, well, maybe prospecting could be one way to do it. And because the goal is to find leads and meetings for the system. So that's basically I was starting to be an SDR without having the title of being an SDR. And that's how I ended up being an SDR, because at this company I was still in marketing, doing the job of an SDR. And then I moved officially to a company, to my first SDR role.
So I saw you work at Chili Piper, and funny enough, a little backstory on me. I was teaching tennis until I was around 25 years old, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I quit and I went and started to travel. I had the travel bug, and I was doing a bunch of trips around the world. And this time I was done. I was gonna quit and I moved down to Argentina to learn Spanish, and I started traveling from there. But after a while, I had a girlfriend who's now my wife. But after a while, 9 months in or so, I was like, I needed a job. And so I started looking for remote positions. And funny enough, Chili Piper was coming up. They were one of the first remote, at least like when I was looking, I saw them as one of the first remote, first companies. And I applied. I don't think I ever had an interview, but you worked there for a while. Tell us about that experience. And ultimately, I think you were, let me just double check this. Yeah, you had a few different promotions there, and ultimately to SDR manager. So how did that process work from starting as an SDR and ultimately becoming an SDR manager?
The context also when I started my role at Chili Pepper was I was an SDR leader before being at Chili Pepper, and I moved back to an SDR role, and some people were saying, why do you do that? You are a manager now, and why are you going back to an IC role? And I think that was just that was during COVID actually, and at this moment, the tech space the B2B industry was performing really well because COVID, yes, a lot of companies were struggling, but the B2B industry, no, they were not struggling. They were booming, and Chili Pepper was one of them. They were performing really well. So started as an SDR on the mid-market team and focusing on North America, and then got some success and was promoting really quickly to team lead and then manager, and then moved to leading the team for EMEA, and then after that to build the enterprise team also. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So like I think 3 or 4 promotions in 2 years, something like that.
Impressive. Nice. Yeah, I think I'm just going to make the assumption here, but a lot of companies when COVID hit, they were figuring out how to go remote. And a company like Chili Piper, at the time I was working for a remote company too. It's like, we're already working remote. There's no transition needed. So it's the same. But for you, what were some of the things you did that management saw that, okay, you could be a good manager? Like what were some of the things you're doing as an SDR to help get yourself promoted? Was there anything that stood out?
Yes. A few things. One was improving the playbook of the team. That was one. Because I did one mistake, I would say, when I joined, was trying to reinvent the playbook with my own playbook. And I stopped really quickly. So I started using more the Chili Pepper playbook and then improving the playbook. That's the first thing. The second thing was coaching and onboarding new reps on the team. So I was already proactive about doing this. So because something I don't think I love doing it's when I see something not working or that could be improved, I improve it. So I would say that's the 3 main things that I've been doing on why I got promoted to leadership there.
So if you're an SDR listening to this, and also, I have a bunch of SDRs on my team. I have over 40. There, you can, like, if you want to get promoted, you ultimately need to start doing things that will stand out. It sounds like that's what you're doing. You were helping out other team members. What probably helped you get into the team lead position, but start doing the things that manager or that potential job would entail. So when the position opens up, it's a no-brainer. Oh yeah, let's promote Elric.
Yes, and I forgot also to say I was performing also. I was depending on the months, number one, number two. So it was on top of performing. I was also doing those things. So it's because I think it's. I don't think you need to be the top performer also for leadership specifically, because for other roles maybe yes you can be the number one, but for leadership you don't need to be the number one normally to be promoted, because I think it's more about doing the things. For example, you need to be a leader. Is improving the processes, the playbook, coaching, or helping the team. If you're already doing that proactively, that's already you're already doing the things you need to be a good leader. So
100% agree. And if you're the best rep, sometimes management will be like, well, I don't want to lose my best rep, who's producing the most business or booking the most meetings. What you say though is like, ultimately it's more about how you're being proactive and helping others. That's what's more important rather than the results. They do go hand in hand. You can't be the bottom performer. But yeah, that's ultimately what will help you get promoted. What was it like though when you started, as an SDR, and then you ultimately started managing other SDRs? What was that like, and how many were you managing at that time?
The max managed at that time was 14 with a team leader. So that was a lot, I would say, because normally now that's not something I recommend. It's a lot. So that was tough because I think leadership is this role that you don't have a lot of support, I would say. So you need to figure out a lot of things. And most of the time you have training and a lot of coaching for reps. But for new managers, it's you don't have a lot of resources on that. So I would say I was overwhelmed and trying to do my best, I would say.
Probably would have been nice to have a tool like Hyperbound or something similar to help take some of that load off your back. I don't think those tools were out in the market at that time.
No, they were not.
In today's world, are you a fan of those? When you work with other companies, are you helping them use a tool like that to help train the SDRs?
Yes, and I think AI is for this use case, practicing, I think it's a really good one because SDRs or AEs even, they can role play when they want. They don't need to have like someone from the team being available to do it. And now I think also for now with AI, you can train the model on your industry, so and your own customers. So the AI will be even better than the manager, for example, to train the rep on this. So, and this is trained on real scenarios, real objections. And so I would say the AI will be more an expert than the manager. So that's a thing that I think is really great with this because the AI can use the business acumen of the market of your product.
Yeah, we use it internally, and it's so important, especially with all the different clients we have and ICPs and industry. Like it's part of our process now, whether the client changes the campaign or it's a new client, that the SDR has to go through that process. So we're big fans. Back to the SDRs though. I assume once you became an SDR manager, you started hiring a lot of SDRs. I imagine you were part of that process. Walk us through that. What are you looking for when you're hiring an SDR? What are some of the traits you're looking for?
It depends on the stage of the company. So I don't do the same thing if it's an early stage company or if it's more where you already have a playbook and an onboarding process. Because if you don't have an onboarding process, for example, I don't hire an SDR without experience because it's. And I'm going to give some reasons why I do that this way, but if you are early stage, you don't have a playbook working and an onboarding process, the reps on your team, they need to learn the role of being an SDR, but on top of that, the market, and which I think is 2 learning curves and more complexity, I would say. So if early stage, they only have some experience, but the traits will be similar, I would say. So the traits I'm looking for, curiosity, obviously, but coachability, because even though they have some experience, I need someone being coachable, because it's not because you work for another company that you come with your own process and your way of thinking, because each industry is a bit different. So you need to focus on testing things, but also improving the process. So coachability, curiosity, the two main ones. What else?
Grit.
Go ahead.
You look for anything like, a lot of other leaders, and I would tend to agree with this, is like, have they gone through struggle in the past, whether that be something like an addiction or sports, or maybe they were, raised by a single mom, whatever it may be, and they struggled, and like, because the SDR work isn't easy, right? No one wants to be an SDR forever. So if you have done a lot of hard things in the past, and it makes this role a little bit easier. That's another one that comes to mind.
That's another good one.
Do you run through mock calls when you onboard SDRs? How does that process typically work?
During the hiring process, but also the onboarding process, yes. So hiring, do you want to focus on onboarding or hiring?
Either one, you choose.
This episode is sponsored by LevelUp Leads, a B2B sales development and appointment setting agency. Companies always need pipeline, but they oftentimes don't want to hire SDRs internally. The whole process is risky and expensive. You've got hiring costs, onboarding, training, additional spend on your tech stack, a few months to ramp up. And with that being said, SDRs are a high turnover position, and the person you hire might not necessarily work out, so you need to start all over again. That's why companies outsource this. LevelUp Leads allocates a team of people, their tech stack, so you can onboard and launch your campaigns in about a week. They set qualified meetings in your calendar so your team has more selling opportunities. Visit levelupleads.io today to learn more. All right, now back to the show.
Yeah. Okay, so for hiring specifically, let's talk about hiring, because I'm not looking for someone nailing the cold call, basically. I want to see if they are prepped, the cold call, but also what they've been looking for during when they are preparing. So if they did some research to see what have they found about the product, for example, or the ICP we have they prepped for some objection handling, for example? And what I'm looking for during this process of hiring is mainly the coachability, if you go back to what I said earlier, and the curiosity. So what I'm looking for is, do they ask a question on the cold call? That's one. And then, so if that question, it's mainly saying if they are curious, that's one. And then the coachability side is at the end of the role play, I'm going to give one positive feedback on the stuff they did done well on the call, but also constructive feedback. And what I'm looking for here, it's how they react to this. Are they reacting well? And are they not saying anything, or are they pushing back on your feedback? Mm-hmm. And even though in a hiring process they know we test them on that, you have some people pushing back on your feedback. And I know if someone is pushing back on the feedback, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but it's if someone is already pushing back on this, for me, that's already a red flag, for example, for coachability. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying this is the final decision here, because I want to see then if I confirm on other ways if they're still coachable, but that's one way. Also, so that's when I give them feedback, but before giving them feedback, also I ask them, what do you think about this role play? Mm-hmm. What do you think you could have been doing differently, to see also if they are self-aware? So those kind of stuff. And then we do a second role play. And then I want to see if they apply the feedback right away. Sometimes they do, which is great, obviously, but sometimes they don't. So that's another sign. Also, they are not coachable. So I'm not saying they just do one thing. You have one flag and it's over. No, it's a lot of, I'm taking notes of everything basically, but I'm looking a lot of not what they are saying, but more like the stuff they are doing during interview. On the soft skills, so curiosity and coachability.
Yeah. we follow a similar process, but I do like what you added about the feedback and are they defensive? It's a good sign. I like that.
It's an early sign, actually.
Yeah, it's an early sign. Now, I've found that people can interview very well. So they talk well, they've had some good experience, they're professional interviewers, but then they get hired and all of a sudden you're like, what? Like, it doesn't all add up. Is there anything you do or look for in the first few months once you do get someone hired to make sure, like, do you have someone that's a keeper in terms of an SDR?
What do you mean?
Is there anything you look for once they actually do get hired in the first month or so that they'll actually turn into a good SDR? Any traits, certain things like you mentioned about being coachable?
I would say one thing that I'm seeing a lot helping with performance most of the time is the number of questions they ask. And here I'm not, because obviously in week one it's hard to see if someone is going to perform because this is just week one, but something that I've been seeing, and here I think if they ask a lot of questions, I already know that through the interviews and the hiring process, but during the onboarding also, are they asking a lot of questions because they're curious and they want to really understand. So for me, in the past and still right now, it's something that I'm still saying. It's the number of questions they ask, and that can be really like dumb question but I don't care. If they're asking questions, they're not afraid of asking questions. Most of the time, I know that's something that's going to help with their performance.
Yeah, shows that they're engaged, which is positive.
Also. Yeah, and they really care about the role because I think the SDR role it's a tough role, and so that's for me it's a good sign, I would say, of early performance.
It's one of those roles where you can come from a lot of different backgrounds and excel. You could be a teacher, you can be an athlete, you can be a programmer. That's probably not as likely, but you can literally come from all walks of life and be good in sales, which is very interesting, but also makes it hard to hire. You have to be very good at. I had on someone the last episode. His name is Matthew Roberts, and he was talking about if you could nail 10 out of 10 hires, you'd be a millionaire. Like it's very challenging in the SDR world because anyone can be good at it. You don't have to have a degree; just having conversations.
Yeah, that's why sorry if I didn't mention that well, but for me, that's why I'm focusing a lot on soft skills more than the rest. Because of that, because this is a tough role, and for me, I'm not saying like candidates as a good fit. It's more like, do they have potential? Because if they are coachable, curious, this is the only limit you have. It's it's time. So it can take 1 month or 3 months or 6 months sometimes for some people. But if they have the great soft skills for the role, they will perform at some point. So it's just a question of time.
Is there a particular channel in today's world that you're seeing work best? Is it the phones? Is there another channel that you're seeing that what is working the best for the SDRs?
I don't have an answer for that. It's all channels work. It just depends who is giving you the answer. So with some customers, email works better. For some customers, it's LinkedIn. For some customers, it's the phone. So it really depends on the industry. So for me, it's unfortunately you can't rely on one channel. So I know some industries, it's like if you sell to restaurants, the phone will be the best channel. But if you do mid-market or enterprise sales, you can't rely on one channel, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I don't think you have one one channel is better than the other. But it's for me, being in the trenches and seeing what's working in different industries, it's just a question of, do we have a team to make call? For example, some customers I'm working with, they don't have an SDR team, so they're not cold calling. But I suggest they need to hire people and to add this channel, for example, because unfortunately you can't use AI for cold calling right now.
Well, conversations are very important, especially like in an early stage company. There's still a lot of learning that needs to be done, and that learning process it's a lot faster when you can have a conversation with somebody rather than waiting for a LinkedIn reply or an email. But I do agree with you, multi-channel is best because not everyone's going to answer. If you just rely on one, not everyone's going to be on that channel, right? So
Yep.
you need to hit people in different channels.
And that's I've written about this recently, actually, about what's the best channel. And if you start asking, even to your prospect, in this newsletter unpack that someone on LinkedIn was asking about what's your favorite channel for prospecting as a prospect. And one person said the phone, one person said email, one person said LinkedIn. And I think it's just about preferences. And unfortunately, when you do cold outreach, you don't know what's the favorite channel of the person in front of you. So multi-channel, that's why you need to do that. And two, you don't know what's the preference of the person, so you need to try the phone. Some people, they will never pick up the phone. Some people, they will never reply to an email, and some people will never reply to LinkedIn. So, and we are talking about cold outreach, but with my customers selling to enterprise, we don't limit ourselves to those 3 channels. We use conferences also, so for in-person, dinners, in-person visits at the company, gifts. So, and here it's you can say, oh yeah, but that's maybe marketing. Yeah, but that's as a one team, we are here also to find what's the best channel. And sometimes cold calling, emailing, or LinkedIn, it's not enough. And for those large enterprise accounts, and here we're talking about 6 figures, 7 figures contracts, yes, you can add more channels to it.
Yeah. We have typically we're doing a lot of calling, emailing, LinkedIn. We do some other channels like ads and SEO and stuff, but we have a few companies that will go to conferences and others that will hold small events, like invite only events. And one of them just sold a $20 million deal. So it does work. Now it's you got to pay for, sometimes there's gifts involved. Sometimes you're paying for the dinner. So it costs money, but you're building relationships that can ultimately lead to big deals. So it doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, but those are working. People are running them.
Yeah, but to focus on, to double down on what you're saying here, if your contract is a potential $2 million ACV, you don't care about the costs at this time, because some people say, oh yeah, I want to just do cold email, but for a 20 million ACV deal, I don't think just sending one email is going to be enough. So your cost of acquisition can be higher for those deals.
Yeah, definitely. And it only makes sense. Conferences too, like for the most part, like they're expensive to go to, but you are building relationships. They certainly lead the deals, but they are more expensive because you're sending your team there. There's meals, there's hotels, flights, things like that. But we see them work well.
Yeah, but for conferences, actually, with one customer, we were testing. They have a booth at the event, but then also on top of it, they are running dinners. So for the top accounts also at the event. So this is more expensive, but for this company specifically, in the past, they tried cold calling them, sending emails, sending LinkedIn invites, never got a reply. We start inviting them at the conference to the dinners. They created like 4 opportunities by doing that. So that's why I'm saying this is not just 3 channels. That's why.
Well, both of us are in Pavilion, and I went to the Pavilion conference last year, and some of these companies are hosting dinners and essentially sponsoring them, putting on the event. Oftentimes they'll share, but it's like you go to it, you're getting some free drinks, some free food. It's like you're almost too obligated to ask, well, what does this company do anyways? So then you start learning about them, and you're like, okay, yeah. So it's like it's a great way to get people to start to understand it, or at least have it in the back of their minds when the opportunity comes up. They will know of this company and what they do. Question for you: where do you see the SDR role and sales in general? Where do you see it going over the next year or two? I don't want to say too far out because it's changing a lot, but do you have any predictions? You think it'll stay the same? Do you see any changes coming?
No. So for me, the biggest change, it's the role right now. It's we have the tools to make this role the most efficient as possible than ever. because without AI, because I think for me the biggest change in the role it's AI specifically, but before it was not possible. But right now, what's for me the biggest change is the time spent per SDR on the phone or prospecting in general, talking to prospects. So why I'm saying that is we were talking about chili pepper. So and that chili pepper, that's what I spent most of my time about thinking about, hey, if our team right now is averaging 12 opportunities a month, and we're thinking about what about 15? What about 20 opportunities? At this time, at Chili Pepper, it was 2022. You didn't have like ChatGPT or Clay, for example, as tools to use. So it was not easy, I would say, to solve. The only way I found at that time was having a team of freelancers, also focusing on data entry or stuff that now you can do with AI or what you can do with Clay. That was not possible. And I think right now the biggest change is the time spent on prospecting that before was maybe if you're a good team was 30-40% of the week. So on prospecting. And right now it's 70-80% with AI. That's how you can improve the output for the output. Obviously, you improve the time spent on prospecting, so obviously it's going to help improve the output of the team, and that's where I'm seeing the most the biggest change right now. So some people might think the role is changing, but the way I'm seeing it, it's I don't think 𝐬𝐫𝐫𝐞 will be managing AI agents, but you can see that OpenAI, Anthropic are hiring SDRs. So they are not hiring an SDR to manage AI agents. They are hiring people to go after the biggest accounts in the world. So
yeah,
so I don't think the role is disappearing. It's still here. And I have the data also on that. In the past 12 months, in globally, the number of SDRs grew by 30,000 SDRs.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that LinkedIn? Where do you get that?
Yeah. I use LinkedIn for to get this information. So I think for different reasons, but is the role is really being replaced by AI? So I don't think so. But yeah, that's what I'm seeing, and that's where I think the market is going. Is SDR will be more focused on prospecting than admin task. That's the biggest change I'm seeing. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. It's you really want, it's not cheap to have the SDR motion in place, and where they really make the biggest impact right now is talking to people. So you want to, if you're doing an event motion, you want them at the events talking to people. If you're not doing that, you want them on the phones talking to people. Like that is where they're going to make the biggest difference. What I noticed, I'm curious to get your take on this too. It's going to lead to my next question. But what I've noticed with companies we work with, they do have internal teams. They will hire us, even though they have internal teams. But what I noticed is a lot of them are getting stuck in internal meetings. They get stuck doing account research. They get stuck putting stuff in the CRM, and before you know it, the day's gone, and they've made 25 calls. And they're, the leadership's wondering why pipeline's not there. So to my next question to you is I was going to ask, what are some of the issues you see when you come in to help companies, because they're hiring you to help build out processes and whatnot. What are some of the issues that you're finding within these companies?
For me, this is they don't know what they don't know. So unfortunately, it's you don't know what's possible. You don't know what you can do right now with tools, AI to optimize it. And the other thing also is the underinvestment in SDR team, because most of the time when I start working with a company, they think it's just, I've hired three reps, junior reps. We don't have any playbooks. Go use Apollo, go use Lemlist, whatever they use, go figure out. And they think this is an easy role. So I think for me, the biggest problem is the lack of understanding of the role, and then they underinvest in this role.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I don't know for you.
Same thing. I mean, it depends on the person you're talking to and whether or not they have experience, if they have a sales background, or if they're a product-led founder. But some people just expect results from an SDR in 1 month. And it's just like, that's, it could happen, but it's not likely going to happen. And what it boils down to is they don't understand how a sales building up a pipeline really works, and that the stuff doesn't happen overnight, and people aren't ready to make decisions right now. So it takes time.
Yeah, and I agree. And that's why when I work with a new customer, I set the expectations of 12 months for to see any revenue. So, and this is not like, it's unrealistic. No, but that's the reality of if you are building a team, because I think with some customers, this is via Teams. With some customers, it's automated. If it's automated, I think it can come quicker. But if it's via team, 12 months, it's more realistic. And they say, why 12 months? It's your sales cycle. Okay, 6 months, 8 months. Okay, that's one that start answering your question. 2, hiring. If you are hiring, it maybe take you 1 or 2 months to find someone. Well, you can add 1 or 2 months. And then if you have like a new person, you can also add the ramp of the person. And so that's why I'm saying it takes time to get some results.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Where's the best place for people to find you if they want to ask you questions or potentially work with you?
Yeah, the best place is my newsletter. So right now I'm going back to 1 per week, but it's newsletter.outbound.kitchen. Basically, I'm sharing what I do with customers, but also what the top teams are doing right now. Because for me, the way I'm still learning, it's studying the best team in the market and doing this with my customers. So that's the best place.
So sign up for the newsletter at that URL that you mentioned. Repeat it one more time.
Newsletter.outbound.kitchen.
Got it. Thanks for coming on, Elric. I appreciate it. And until next time.